Right. Good morning and welcome for joining me this morning for the Grade 10 Mathematics webinar. I am just going to allow for a minute or two for some attendees to still sign in. I see that they're still coming in loads. So I'm just going to allow for a minute or two. I'll be with you just now. Right. Good morning for those of you who didn't hear or see me this morning. I did allow for some time for some attendees to still come on board. I'm sure everyone is here, so I will be starting the webinar. Right, before we start, I just would like to do a bit of a cover of all the basics that we are doing today, and some rules and some settings just to make sure that you can properly hear me. So if you are struggling to hear me, please make sure that your audio is on and that your speaker volume is turned up. I just want to highlight that for the guys that can't hear me. Because it doesn't help, I just say that and they can't hear me. So if everyone can hear me and you know how it works, can you please put up your hand? You will see there's a little hand icon where you can put up your hand. There we go. Right, it seems like everyone knows what's going on. Well done. So I assume that a lot of you joined me 2 weeks ago for the webinar as well. So I will do this webinar in the same manner that I have done previously. Very interactive, so I would love if you can join me in that. So I'm just going to take down all your hands so that we don't get confused later on. Right, you will automatically be muted when you join the session. When we get to the question part, and I see that it is an amount of students that have questions, I will unmute you. You can ask your question and I will answer you. Right. Should you have any questions, you can ask your question in the question box on your dashboard, or you can raise your hand. So you raise your hand when I ask you if you have any questions also on, or when I want you to be interactive as well. Right, we did check this already, but if you don't know yet, and if you want to quickly check and test yours, you will see that there's a little hand icon and you can use that to put up your hand. So if you want to double check that now, you're welcome to. So if you want to put up your hand, you can put up your hand, see how it works. It's quite easy. I see there's a few of you testing it out. All right. Okay, I am just going to put down the hands for now. Right, you can download this presentation or any additional resources in your handout box. Now, your handout box is also on your dashboard. For the purpose of this webinar, it's only the PDF formats of this slideshow that is available in the handout box. You can download that now. You can download it during the webinar. but you need to do it before we end the broadcast because it won't be available after that. I will remind you about that a little bit later on as well. Right, you will also find all of this information in the question box on your right-hand side, also on your dashboard. Remember to send us all your questions. You can type it out here. You can also send an email to info@impact.co.za. Right, we really encourage our attendees to leave comments. However, if you leave irrelevant or inappropriate comments, you will be dismissed from the session. If we do not get to your question during the session, please email your academics questions to academics@impact.co.za. The questions in the question box I will answer at the end. If you did not receive the answers to the questions, you can send an email to info@impact.co.za, and you are welcome to visit our YouTube channel. So at the end of the session, I will also give you the link to our YouTube channel. You're welcome to go and have a look over there. Right, so let's move on. Maybe I should just make sure at this point, I saw that there's a lot of Afrikaans students attending the session as well. You're welcome to stay, but we did book an Afrikaans session, which will be a repeat of this session just in Afrikaans on Friday afternoon. So if you'd rather like to join in on the Afrikaans session, you can sign in and attend on Friday, or you're welcome to stay now. Right. So 2 weeks ago, and also in your notes, I'm not sure if all of you saw the notes. The notes is available on the guided learning platform under resources. Should you be an external student that is not registered with Impact, you're welcome to send an email to info@impact.co.za and ask them to just send you the notes that I've sent last week. So the notes build onto the webinar that we had 2 weeks ago. Right, I just want to recap quickly what we are doing in term 2. So term 2, a big part of term 2 is actually trigonometry, functions, Euclidean geometry, and of course in the past 2 weeks we focused on trigonometry only. Now today we are still going to continue with that, and this will be our last content session regarding trigonometry. Right, so we said that trigonometry will be done in paper 2, and we looked at everything that you need to be able to do in trigonometry. And we said it's very important for you to know that we are working with right-angled triangles. You also know that in trigonometry, triangles is very important. And I said that trigonometry, if you look at the word trigonometry, it has to do with triangles. In Afrikaans, we call that driehoeksmeting. That means the measurement of a triangle. Right. Just specifically for this here, you are going to work in a right-angled triangle. It means that your one angle in your triangle is 90 degrees. Now, all of that highlighted blue parts we have done in the webinar or in the notes of last week. Today, we will look at solving trigonometric equations. And the last 3 we will actually do in the notes. I've already put together the notes and it will be available for you next week to work through. And there's also links to our YouTube channel, and where you can actually look at someone explaining the work as well and working through some examples. So let's look at solving trigonometric equations. You will still need your trigonometric ratios that we looked at. You will still need your Pythagoras and also your special angles. Now, your Pythagoras and your special angles, we have actually discussed in the notes, and trigonometric ratios we have done in our previous webinar. Now, like I said, you can get all of that on the guided learning platform and on YouTube. Let's just recap that quickly, because you need to know all of this and actually use this to apply it to actually solve your trigonometric equations. Trigonometric ratios. We talked about sine, cos, and tan, and you actually would have seen that I talked about their reciprocals as well in your notes. Now, up to this stage, we didn't really work with the reciprocals, but you will need it later on, and it's a good idea to work through that and look in your textbook. Where does that come into play? Right, so we said that sine, beta, or theta, or any angle, which is very important, is your opposite over your hypotenuse side, or you can choose to work with your y over your r value. Cos theta or beta, or your angle, is your adjacent over your hypotenuse side, or your x over r, and your tan beta is your opposite over adjacent, which is your y over your x side. Now, all of this you will find in our first webinar that we have done. So if you didn't join in, you're welcome to go and have a look at that. It's uploaded on the guided learning platform and on the YouTube channel. The second thing that we need to look at is our theorem of Pythagoras. Right, so this was dealt with in the notes that is available, right? And we said that the hypotenuse side squared is equal to the two other smaller sides squared added together, and that you can actually manipulate this equation to find the side that you are looking for. Thirdly, we looked at all the special angles and where does it come from and how does it work. And I hope that all of you saw there that I said it's very important that you need to know the special angles. No one is going to give you the values of that special angles. You need to know that off by heart. So make a note for yourself. You need to go and study the special angles. The quickest way to actually study this and to know it is to just go and study the two triangles that you're going to use. Then you're just going to make use of your trigonometric ratios and apply that to your triangles to actually get the answers of your trigonometric expressions. Right. I hope that everyone is still with me. Can you still hear me? Are you following? You can put up your hand just to let me know that you're still here and that you are fine. Great. I see a lot of hands going up. Okay. So let's start with the new work that we are going to do today. Right. So I am going to do a few examples to make sure that you know how to apply those three things that we looked at, your ratios, your Pythagoras, and your special angles, how we are going to do that. We are going to do a few examples here, so I want you to look at each and every one of them very carefully. I've chosen them for a specific reason, and each of them has something new to teach you. With solving trigonometric equations and you're not working with special angles, you will make use of your calculator. So I hope that you do have your calculator with you. If you don't, I'm just going to give a few seconds that you can grab that and have that in front of you because I'm going to show you some skills that you're going to need to answer these questions. Grab that calculators, drag them closer, and see what's going to happen. Right. So this specific question says, use your calculator to solve the following equations correct to 2 decimal places, where x is between 0 and 90 degrees. Now there's a lot of information that you might miss if you don't look carefully for that. So the first thing is here that they say, luckily in this case, use your calculator. Sometimes they don't say that, but they also don't say without the use of a calculator. So that's one clue. If they don't say without the use of a calculator, you are allowed to use your calculator then, or just by mentioning the words correct to 2 decimal places. That actually also gives you a clue and a tip to say, listen, you are allowed to use your calculator here. The next information actually means that I am working with an acute angle over there. So between 0 and 90 degrees, I have acute angles. And in trigonometry, this is actually very important for us to know. And you will later on actually get to work with different quadrants. Now, this, all you need to know is when it is an acute angle between 0 and 90 degrees, you don't have to worry about the sign, if it is positive or negative of this trigonometric expressions. Okay, so you can just work with that. Later on, you'll work with other quadrants. So let's look at the first one. Sine x is equal to 0,57. Now, you have never worked with something like this, and they actually say that you need to solve x because they say x is between those two numbers there, 0 and 90 degrees. So I want to solve x, which in this case is your angle. Remember, we said that we need to work with a reference angle the whole time, an angle that you are referring to. And in this case, it is x. Now, we didn't work with that as yet in our webinar or in the notes. So this is quite new. Now, how am I going to calculate that? And I'm going to start with how you are going to write that. Now, usually in algebra, you would just divide with the coefficient of something when it's multiplying with x. In this case, sin is not multiplying with x. I'm going to repeat that. Sine is not multiplying with x. It's one thing. It's to reference of x. So how do I split them up? And there's one way that we write that. We will say that x is equal to sine to the power of -1, 0.57. Do you see I didn't divide it? I didn't multiply it. I didn't go and subtract it on the other side. The only way that I can detach that sin from the x is to actually write it as sine to the power of -1 and then the value that is given over here for me. Right. So how am I going to calculate that? And that is where you are going to grab your calculator. Now, I know that some of you have the sharp. It's fine. There's only one word that is. So how am I going to calculate this angle? Firstly, you will press your shift button, or in the with the sharp, they call it the second function. So shift button. And I am working with sin. So the next button will be your sin. And you will actually see that the screen makes a sign to the power of -1. Then you are going to punch in your value over here, 0.57, and you will press your equal. And that's when you'll get your answer. What is it that you calculated? You calculated an angle over here. So the angle x, which is indicated over here, is equal to 34.75 degrees. You're working with the angle, so you need to remember your unit, which is degrees over here. Right. If you are still with me and you understand and you see what I'm doing, quickly put up your hand. Are you following? You're all right? Yes, good. Wonderful. I will allow for some time to ask your questions in the end, So write down your answer somewhere if you're scared you're going to forget, or type your answer in the question box. I will spend some time at the end to answer your questions. Thank you. I see that there's a lot of you still with me at the moment. Right, I'm going to take down the hands for now. Okay, so now you know that you need to use your calculator to actually find these angles that they're asking. So I want us to look at a few examples still. And like I said, each of them is chosen for a specific reason to actually teach you something over there. So the next one says 3 cos x is equal to 0,96. So now I have a coefficient, something that is multiplying with my trigonometric expression. So firstly, I can take that over to the other side. I can divide both sides with 3 to get this 3 away. I'm still not detaching this from the angle. This is just something multiplying. So I am just going to divide it away. So divide both sides, and I'm left with that, and just get an answer over there. Do you see that this expression is similar to what we've done in your first example? Right, so you're going to do the same thing. You're going to write it in the form that we can solve it. So you'll say x equal to cos, because you're working with cos now, to the power -1, and your value of 0,32. Now you're going to take your calculator and follow the steps that we've done. So you'll say shift cos, in this case, 0,32, and your equal sign. And you will get that x is equal to 71.4 degrees. Right, so let's look at the next one. Now I want you to look very carefully. In the previous ones, x was the angle. Now, with this example, x plus 15 is the entire angle. I'm going to repeat it. X plus 15 is the entire angle. It's split up a bit, but when you calculate this, your entire angle will be calculated. Then you didn't solve x as yet. Okay, so firstly, let's just write it in the way that I can actually calculate my angle. And we said that our angle, just in the other cases that were x, but in this case, my entire angle is x plus 15 is equal to sin, because I'm working with that, -1 and my value. And you're still going to use your calculator over here. You will press shift sin, because I'm working with this sin, 0,615, and your equal. Now this is not equal to x, it's equal to my entire angle over here. So x plus 15 is equal to 37,95 degrees actually, right? So how do I solve x? Remember, I'm solving trigonometric equations. How do I solve x? It's just to do that inverse calculations, right? So I will subtract 15 degrees over here, subtract 15 degrees over there, and you will get that x is equal to 22.95 degrees. All right. So in this case, they can also give you something like this. Tan x is equal to sin 42 degrees. Right, so now I do not have a value over here, but I can calculate a value. I do have a calculator that I can just punch that into. So I will say tan x is equal to, and on your calculator press sin 42 equals, and you will get 0,66913. Right, so how do I calculate the angle now? I need to write it in a form that I can calculate x. So I will is equal to tan to the power -1, and my value that I get over there, just as you have done now. You're going to use your calculator again. You'll say shift tan, in this case, 0.66913 and carry on as long as you can, and your equal. And you will get that x is equal to 33.79 degrees. Right, so let's just recap at what you should have learned from each of these examples. So the first one was just to show you how to actually use your calculator to find your angle over there. So if you have something multiplying in the front or something adding or something subtracting at the end, you need to get your expression, your trigonometric expression alone on the left-hand side before you can carry on. When you have something more than just one symbol representing your angle, you need to think of it as your entire angle. And then lastly, they can also give you a trigonometric expression, but one that you can actually calculate. Tan x, you can't punch into your calculator and just get an answer, but with sin 42 degrees, you can. So let's now look at when you get questions regarding solving trigonometric equations, and it actually has to do with special angles. So your special angles is 45 degrees, 30 degrees, and 60 degrees. Please go back to the notes that is uploaded on Guided Learning Platform. You will find that under resources, and go and revise that if you are not up to scratch with your special angles. Right, so when you are going to use special angles, you will not make use of a calculator. You are not allowed to make use of a calculator. The question will also stipulate that you should solve this equation without the use of it. This means that you need to know something off by heart, something that you can apply to these questions. And this is this values over here. Now, all of these values you can find by just knowing two triangles. Look at your notes. Go and study the two triangles and you will be able to know all of these values that is in this table. So for the purpose of these questions and examples we're going to do, I'm going to leave this table up here because I'm sure not everyone already knows this off by heart. Okay, so how can they ask me these questions? Using the special angle, sometimes they don't say that. You need to actually see and recognize values. Solve the following equations for x between 0 and 90 degrees. Now we said that that is acute angle over there. So the first one is 2 sin x is equal to the square root of 3. Now, still, I need to find x, which is an angle. Look here. There is a reference to angles, but the same steps apply as in the previous slide. I need to get this expression alone. So this is multiplying with my trigonometric expression on this side. So I want to divide both sides with 2. And I am left with square root of 3 over 2. Now, this should already give you an indication that it's a special angle. You will see values like 1, 2, square root 3. You will see square root 2's. So any combination of that should actually give you an indication that you are working with special angles. So how are you going to do that? You are working with sin. There's the line, sin. And I have an answer of square root 3 over 2. So square root 3 over 2 actually tells me that sin 60 degrees is square root 3 over 2. So I know that I can actually apply my x over there. You know that your angle, which is your x, is equal to 60 degrees. Right. Let's look at the next one. So cos 3x is equal to a half. Now again, this is my entire angle over here. Yes, I know what this entire angle can be by looking at this expression over here, a half. I'm looking at cos need to look in my cos line, and there I find a half. It means that my entire angle, which is 3x, is equal to 60 degrees. So how do I solve x? Divide both sides with 3 and you will get to 20 degrees. Right, so let's look at the next one. I said that you need to find your trigonometric expression alone on your left-hand side. So let's see if we can simplify this a bit. So firstly, I can add a 1 on this side. I need to add a 1 on the right-hand side. Then I'm left with this. And there's a 4 multiplying over here, so I need to divide both sides with a 4 off on the right-hand side. So I know that I'm working with sin, so I need to look at the top row again, and I know that it's equal to half. There you have it. So you know that your entire angle is equal to 30 degrees. Therefore, I can say my entire angle, which is 2x minus 10, is equal to 30 degrees. I need to solve x, so I need to get it alone. I'll add both sides, and then I'll so there again, you know that your x is equal to 20 degrees. Right. The last example for the special angles times tan 60 is equal to cos 30. Now this is a bit different. Do you see that they do give me these angles? I don't need to find an angle. X is just a variable in the front. It is not connected to a trigonometric expression, meaning it is not an angle. Why did they give me this? They gave me this because I can find the value of tan 60 and I can find the value of cos 30 because they are special angles. I know that I need to know that, and I can actually find that without the use of a calculator. Remember, you cannot use your calculator when working with special angles. Right. So when I want to solve something, in this case solve x, I need to find that variable that I need to solve alone on the left-hand side or the right-hand side on either side of the equal sign. So it is multiplying with tan 60. I am going to divide both sides with tan 60 and I'm left with cos 30 over tan 60. And both of them I can find from my special angle. So cos 30 degrees is square root 3 over 2, and tan 60 degrees is square root 3. So there I have just indicated that for you. Right, so what do? I know the answers, I know the values. I am just going to substitute it into this expression. So we said that cos 30 is square root 3 over 2, and my tan 60 is square root 3. And when you simplify that, you will get that x is equal to a half. Now, do you see that I don't have a degree sign over there? It is because I'm not calculating an angle at this stage. Right. So with each of these equations, again, with each of these examples, again, we've learned something specific with each of them. So I want you to go back and look at them again, see what you should have seen and learned specifically with each of these equations and examples. It builds on the previous one where we solved the angles with our calculators as well. So the same steps kind of apply here. Right. So I have put together some websites and some links to places where you can actually do some extra practice. So you will see there is the 4 websites that you can actually visit and do a bit of practice. Some of them are actually online practice, so you don't even have to print out something, right? So you can just practice that a little bit And then specifically to solving trigonometric equations, there is the link of solving trigonometric equations of our own videos on our YouTube channel. So you are the Afrikaans classes, so you can just follow this link. The Afrikaans one is a replication just in Afrikaans of the same lesson over here. Right. So this website at the bottom is Impact's YouTube channel. So you're welcome to go look over there if you've missed the previous webinar or some of your other subjects. The webinars that is done already will be uploaded over there. Right, so a lot of talking and I didn't give you any chance to ask any questions. So if you have a question, you're welcome to ask that now. You can put up your hand and I can unmute you and then you can ask your question. I will mute you afterwards again. So if you have any questions about the solving trigonometric equations, you're welcome to put up your hand and ask a question. Right, so our first one is Agatha. Agatha, good morning.
Morning, ma'am. Can you hear me?
How are you? I can hear you.
Yes, ma'am. I wanted to know if the special angle values, should we be able to memorize them in the exam? When you
Yes.
write exam. All right.
Yeah. You need to memorize them. Like I said, you know, it's easier for me to just remember two triangles. So you will see you have a triangle that has an angle 45 degrees and 45 degrees, 90 degree, and do just your trigonometric ratios. So opposite over adjacent or opposite
Okay.
over hypotenuse. So go and look at the notes. You will see the two triangles over there, and I'm actually showing you how to use them. So rather memorize two triangles than 9 values.
Okay. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Okay, it's a pleasure. Right, anyone else with a question? I don't see any hand. Oh, there's one. Isabella. Isabella Governor, you are self-muted, so just unmute yourself if you want to ask your question. There you go. Hi, Isabella.
Good morning, ma'am.
How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. And yourself?
Great, thanks. How can I help you?
I wanted to know, how do you determine the quadrant that a triangle is on in a Cartesian plane?
Okay. So that is a bit later on where you will make use of diagrams, and they actually need to give you two parts of information. So they would say square root 3 cos x is equal to 2, for example. You need to get that expression alone. You'll see it's positive and you have some rules regarding that. So what I can tell you now for now is in your first quadrant, all of your trigonometric expressions are positive. In your second quadrant, meaning between 90 and 180 degrees, you only have sin and its reciprocal, which is positive over there. All of the other expressions will give you negative answers. In your third quadrant, which is between 180 and 270 degrees, you will find your tan is the only expression with its reciprocal, which is which is positive over there. And then in the last quadrant between 270 and 360, only cos and its reciprocal is positive over there. For the purpose of this work and for grade 10, you're only going to work in quadrant 1 for now.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, you too. Bye. She's muted again. Right, I saw Jeanette Rennie.
Morning, ma'am.
Hi, Jeanette. Yes, how are you?
Good, and yourself?
Good, thank you. How can I help?
I wanted to ask, what happened to the cos in question 2 for special angles? Because you have cos 3x equals a half, then we said 3x over 3 equals 60 degrees over 3. But I was wondering why there wasn't a cos in front of that 3x, because for all the others.
Okay, right. So you're referring to this one that's on your screen at the moment?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, right. So all of these expressions, if you look at the others, the moment that I got an angle or the value for the angle that it's referring to, this expression falls away. Now this one fell away pretty quickly because cos angle is equal to a half. I know that my angle of a half should be 60 degrees. So the angle in this case, which is 3x, the angle is equal to 60 degrees. That is why it falls away, because I have a value for my angle. It doesn't really fall away. It's just that we are referring to the angle at that stage. I hope it makes sense.
Yes, thank you, ma'am.
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
Pleasure. Bye. Have a lovely day. Right. Is it Kahisha? Kiasha?
Morning, ma'am.
Hi.
I just wanted to find out in solving for trigonometric equations, the example 4,
With the special angles or the normal one?
the normal angles.
Okay, let's just
In
quickly back to that page, then you can there.
in example 4, for sin
Yes.
42 degrees, we took
Yes.
5 decimal places. So is it always 5 decimal places?
So usually we recommend that you take as much as what you can. So when you actually get your answer on your calculator, I don't know if you have your calculator in front of you, you will see that there's an
Yes, I
answer
do.
button here at the bottom.
Yes.
So you can actually say tan or shift tan and then answer. Then it puts the entire answer that you've got there with all the decimals over there. It just makes your answer, your final answer, more accurate. But if you can't and you struggle to do that and you're scared it's going to take some other answer and just use that, 5 decimals is definitely more than enough. You will get an accurate answer with your rounding and everything over there.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure. Bye-bye. Right. I see that, is it, I'm just going to say your surname, Kumalu. How are you?
I'm good.
How can I assist?
The previous girl already asked what I was gonna ask, so I think I'm
Okay.
okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
awesome. All right. It's a pleasure. Bye-bye. Right. Michael Matthews.
Hello,
Hi, Michael.
how are you?
Good, and you?
My question is, can we round off decimals, the different decimal places?
In your final answer?
Or, yeah, in the final answer or during the
Yeah.
equation?
Okay, so
Okay.
during the equation, we recommend that you round off as little as possible. So if it is a very long decimal number, take the first 5 or 6 and work with that until you get to the end. But your final answer, you can always round off in reference to what the paper states. So usually mathematics paper says to 2 decimal places. So your final answer can definitely be rounded off.
And ma'am, one more. You obviously spoke about paper, you're speaking about paper 2, and I was wondering what's in paper 1? Will you get to paper 1?
So there are work that is covered in paper 1, which is part of term 2 work. So I'm going to focus on term 2's work. With each part of the work, I'll indicate for you in which paper it will be.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
It's a pleasure. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Right, Michelle Chetty. Michelle, you're self-muted, so you can just unmute yourself and ask your question. Michelle, if you are still with us, you are self-muted. Just unmute and then you can ask your question. Okay. I am going to move on to the next one. It is Millicent. Hi, Millicent.
Hi, ma'am. Can you hear
How are
me?
you? Yes.
Fine, thanks, and you? Ma'am,
Good.
I was wondering in an exam when they're marking us, how will they score the points?
It all depends on the question, and it depends on what you're gonna, which mathematical skills they actually want to test. So if I just look at the paper or the page in front of you for the first example, you'll get 1 mark. Because I wanted to see, do you know the steps to follow? In example 2, it will be 2 marks. So to get that alone and your final answer. In this case, it will also be 2 marks. So it all depends on the question that they ask you and how many skills you use to actually get to your final answer.
Ma'am, I also have another question for question 4 on the normal equations. When
Yes.
a girl asked if we're supposed to round up to 5 decimals, what if I rounded up to like 2, but my answer wasn't the exact answer? Do I lose marks for that, or is it a range, like from this answer to this answer you get the mark?
That is why I recommend that you use more than 2 decimals inside the question before you get your finals. And we actually teach that up until grade 12, that you should not really round off inside a calculation, only in your final answer. So it all depends on the markers and the examiner's guidelines to how they should mark the question. Usually they are not that strict in grade 10, but rather work how they're going to mark in grade 12. So inside calculations, try not to round off that much, but in your final answer, you are allowed to round off.
Thank you, ma'am. Have a good day. Bye.
Thanks, you too. Bye. Right. It seems like Nathan Stewart. Nathan, do you have a question? Nathan, are you still with us? Okay. Let's move on. Sean LaRue. Sean.
Hello, ma'am.
Hi, Sean. You are self-muted at the
Sorry.
moment.
Yes.
There you
Hello,
go.
ma'am.
There you go. Hi.
Sorry. Hi, ma'am. I wanted to ask at the special equations, the special angles. Sorry, the last
Yes.
example you gave tan and cos. Now, can it be
Yes.
sin equals tan and the same way around? Can it be different, or is it necessarily only going to be those two?
No, it can be any of the 3 that can be linked to special angles. So it can be actually your indicator should be your special angles, your 30, your 45, and your 60 degrees. So when you see those 3, it can be any of these expressions over here.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Pleasure. Bye-bye. Suzanne de Beer.
Yes, hello.
Hi.
How are you? I just wanted to ask, when it comes to, like working out on the calculator, when it comes to sin, cos, and tan, is there like cases when you just use that instead of like pressing shift so it's a negative one, or like, and how do you know which one to use?
Okay. So when you are required to calculate an angle, you need to use the shift. When it is just calculating an expression, you won't use your shift. So I'm quickly going to go back to just that page again, just to show you. Right, so in all of these questions, your x, which you had to solve, were your angles. That is why we used the shift to get this to the power -1. But here, I just wanted the value of that. My angle is already given. Then you can just punch that into your calculator and you do not need your shift. Your shift is used only when you want to calculate the angle.
All right, thank you, ma'am.
Pleasure. Bye. Right, Tatu. Tatu, you can ask your questions.
Yeah, I wanted to ask, why do we tackle trigonometry so early on in the year if it's only going to be coming on in like term four exams?
It's definitely going to be in the June examination as well. You write 2 papers in the June exam.
So it's also going to be in the term 2 exams, paper 2.
Yes. Yes. So
All right.
we're not sure when the June examination will happen with the whole lockdown going on. But yes, they in the mid-year exam, whenever it will be written, trigonometry will definitely be part of your paper 2, and you will also find that in your term tests.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, pleasure. Bye-bye. Right, Sepu. Sepu, you can ask your question.
Hi, ma'am.
Hi.
Ma'am, I was lost with the question for the special angles, the third one.
Okay, let's quickly go there for you.
Ma'am, can you please explain the question again? I just got lost somewhere.
Okay, so the whole question is about they want you to solve x. Now the x can be found as an entire, as a part of the entire angle over here. So if you think back to where we've done normal equations, we had to find the expression like this with sin and the entire angle alone on one side.
Okay, ma'am.
For me to be able to do that, I took the 1 over to this side first, but I still have the 4 multiplying over there. So I divided both sides with a 4 to get this whole trigonometric expression alone on one side. Are you still with me with that?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so now I know I need to look at sin and where that is and give me an answer of a half. I need to find this entire angle over here. So if I look at sin and it gives me a half, my entire angle should be equal to 30. That's why I wrote down my entire angle is equal to 30 degrees.
Okay, ma'am.
Now I still need to solve x. So I take the 10 over, divide with the 2, and then I find my x over there.
Thank you,
so
ma'am.
It's actually algebra.
Yeah, I see. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, great. Pleasure. Bye. Right. It seems like I got to the end of the list. I'm just quickly going to have a look here at the questions in the question box. I just want to make it a bit big. Oopsie. Right, so Daniel Lombard is asking what page in the book you can find this. You can look in your unit 12 in your textbook. All of the trigonometry is over there. I'm not sure of the specific page for this, but just go and have a look at unit 12. Okay. How did I get the value of 0.57? That was given because they said that sin x is equal to 0.57. So that is given in the question. Samuel Carter actually asked that. Right, Suzanne, I answered your question over here. Isabella Governor also wanted to know why do we use the -1 as a power, it is when I need to calculate the angle. That is actually snipping the glue off of that angle over there. Right, Phoebe asks where she can find all the exam papers. You're welcome to go on to my impact, and then academics, the subject content, and you will see that there's some examination help over there. In that folder, you will find some old examination papers. You're also welcome to actually go on the internet, and any CAPS examination paper, you're welcome to work through. Right. Heather Crawford asks, I have heard these functions to be called arcsine, arctan. Yes, you can call that arcs as well. How do you determine the quadrant? Isabella actually asked me about that. So it has to do with the sign, and we spoke about the specific signs that is given to specific expressions in specific quadrants. Right, Natasha actually asks, where do I get the degree sign on your calculator? You will not find the degree sign. You don't have to put in the degree. Your calculator knows that your trigonometric expressions can't stand alone. So if I write a value, you will see a lot of calculators actually, when you press sin, it makes a bracket for you already. So it means that it can't be separated. That value that you put in there, your calculator knows that it's an angle, and you don't have to have that angle sign over there. So you can just say sin 42. Right. Sin, Jeanette actually asked, what is the significance of sin to the power -1, and why does it say sin? So the question refers you to a specific ratio, meaning your y over your r value. That is why it is significant to the sin. Exactly, to the power -1 is when you need to work with your angle over there. Right, Kaylee is asking with question 2, would it make a difference if you first do the cos and then once you find the cos, you divide it by 3? Yes, it will make a difference, because it is not the whole expression that is that needs to be divided by 3. It's only the angle that is over there. So you will see later on where you had coefficients to your trigonometric expressions, where you had 4 sin something or 3 cos something, then you will divide with 3 first. But because you're working with an angle, you need to isolate your angle values first before you can actually divide that answer. So it's very important to see, is it a coefficient or is it part of the angle? So Anel is asking if the test for the 22nd to the 29th of April is postponed. Anel, you can make contact with our assessment department in that regards. I am not entirely sure how they are going to handle this. I know that we are in very special circumstances, and there is a lot of unclear things. So you're welcome to send an email at assessment@impact.co.za, and they will be able to answer you regarding that. Right, Paige said that she got a little bit lost with the special angles. I recommend that you just download or go and watch this webinar again. Work through that examples. If you still struggle, go and look at that YouTube link that I gave you. Go look at that. Go and have a look at that as well. They also do a bit of examples over there. If you don't understand, you're welcome to send an email to academics@impact.co.za. Right, Kaylee asks, how do we know in a normal equation when to use sin, cos, or tan? That will be given. It will say sin x is equal to that, tan x is equal to that, or cos x is equal to that. It will be given to you. It's not something that you need to figure out yourself. Okay, it seems like I have answered a lot of questions over here. So thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that you had a lovely time and that you learned something. I will see you in 2 weeks' time again, as the lockdown was extended. So have a look out, go and have a look for the notes next week on guided learning and the resources. And I hope to see you again. Right, if you are not registered with Impact and you're an external learner signing in and attending today, and you would like to know more about Impact, you're welcome to contact us, info@impact.co.za. Have a lovely day, be safe, and be healthy. Bye-bye.